we interrupt our regularly scheduled programming of horror comic content because I have another Taschen book to show off. These beautiful Marvel reprints, the best way Marvel Comics have ever looked. Please stay tuned and watch this video until the end. And we're back. So if you're watching this on the Organic Price Books YouTube channel, then you might be confused by what I'm talking about with horror comics. I am Taylor of Taylor Talks Comics, and on my YouTube channel for the whole month of October, I've been showing off a different horror comic every single day. So if you're into horror comics and you're watching this on the OPB YouTube, go over to Taylor Talks Comics and subscribe. Check out my video content there. And if you are watching this on the Taylor Talks Comics YouTube channel, then thank you for joining me. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up and comment down below. Do that on the OPB YouTube as well. But if you're wondering why I'm not doing a horror comic today, don't worry. I will have a horror comic video later today. I just wanted to take a break to show off this awesome Taschen edition I just got in. This is Avengers Volume 2. If you've seen the other Taschen editions on my YouTube channel, I do have a playlist showing those off in the playlist tab. But all of these beautiful Taschen editions do come with this really cool box. Oh, I just messed up my whole shot there. Hold on a second. This really cool box. Some people do keep these and collect them this way. I usually just tend to get rid of the box because I don't have any way to store these boxes, any place for them. And I like the books to be on the shelves as the books because they look a lot better that way. But they are really cool. They're two-sided, so you get the front and back cover of what the actual book has itself. And there's a cool spine on the box. And then that's it. But it's all brown and black ink on the box. It is really cool. Like I said, I just don't have room for it. But what we're really here to show off is this book right here. Avengers Volume 2 by Taschen. So, I like to show these books off because I think these are the best way Marvel Comics have ever been presented. Reprints have ever been presented. These books are absolutely gorgeous. You really have to have one in your hands and flip through it yourself. If you ever come across one in an LCS or anything in person, I hope that the local comic book shop has them out of the plastic just so as people can look through them, because I really think they sell themselves if you see them in person. But I'm going to do my best job today trying to sell this to you, so you do get into your hands. But if you can order these over at organicpricebooks.com. They have a lot of other Taschen editions coming out later this year and early next year that I'm stoked about, like the Donald Duck book. I did a video on OPB's website for that, or OPB's YouTube. And then also the EC Comics reprints are going to be in the same format. So just a lot of great work from Taschen. So this is your front cover. Awesome Jack Kirby cover here. And then here's your back cover showing off Hercules. And then here's the spine. So Volume 1, actually let me get Volume 1 off the shelf for a second. There we go. So that's Volume 1 and 2 together. You can see they have a nice red cover on them. And then they also have different character on each one. So you have Thor on Volume 1, Captain America on Volume 2. I'm assuming if they do subsequent volumes, we'll get different characters on those as well. Let me put Volume 1 back on the shelf here. And open this puppy up to show you how beautiful these things are. So as we open it up, you can see there's some bright orange end sheets here on this side. And the back end sheets are different as well. There's blown up panels with just white ink on them, I guess. And you flip through a couple more pages of that. You get the nice Captain America shield there. So we're trying to get the glares off, but also get rid of the shadows. You do have one of these fold outs here where they really blow up these panels. And it also goes on the back side of the fold out. Really cool way to start off the books. And then we get the table of contents with an original art piece, which is almost true to size of what the original art would be, and you get this great splash page by Don Heck, Frank Giacoya on the inks, and then here's the credit or the table of contents. So we're going to start off with beginning of the endgame, an introduction by Christopher Priest, and then the comics start on page 50, and then on page 651 we get a little bit more history and behind the scenes stuff, and then 662. So this is over 650 pages for this book. This is the way I like to see these panels blown up too, full color. This looks absolutely magnificent, seeing Don Heck's artwork like that. And then original art piece. Now these introductions are very thorough and really well done. I think Kurt Busiek did the introduction for Volume 1. So now we have Christopher Priest. In the opening paragraph, he talks about how the MCU has, with Avengers Endgame, has influenced the Avengers team and how we view comic books and superhero movies. But then he gets into the whole history of what we're going to get into the book itself, which I was leery of reading that first opening paragraph or few paragraphs, thinking it was going to be a lot of MCU heavy, but it's not, because I want to know about the comic book history, and that's that. Great picture of Kirby over there on the top right or top left. So these introductions are very thorough, but they also include a lot of good ephemera and original artwork pieces. Hello Dolly being influenced there. You can read that in the caption. And some more original art pieces. Here's a splash page from a Don Heck romance comic, which is really cool to see. I just love Marvel's splash pages from this era with the title lettering and the big images, and just really set the scene. It's almost like it acted as a second cover. So you have like the cover of the comic, and then when you're flipping through it at the drugstore, the first page you open up to is another sort of cover. Now we get the panel here with Captain America, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Hawkeye, and it's Cap's Kooky Quartet that was referred to in the back of the letter pages. Official member of the Avengers Superhero Club. Here's an image, a panel that Christopher Priest surmises is supposed to be Jack Kirby, and possibly the first cameo of a creator being in a Marvel comic, because that was a frequent trope of Marvel comics, having their creators appear in the comics. That was drawn by Don Heck, though. So here's a really cool thing. This is a prose novel written back in the day about the Avengers, the Battle of the Earthwrecker, written by Otto Binder, and it includes what Priest surmises is the first painted artwork of the Avengers team. Obviously, we have like Alex Ross and a number of other people these days doing painted artwork like that. But this work by Otto Binder has kind of a rich history from Otto Binder himself, which you can hear about if you listen to or read the Bill Shelley Bill Shelley biography of Otto Binder, which is a great book. So just really thorough introduction here. Then we get this blown up piece of the cover image of Kang. Again, artwork by Jack Kirby on this. And we get some more of those orange pieces. Then we get into the comics. Now this is the real deal. This is the reason why to watch this video and the reason to buy these books, to show how they're presented. Before I get to that, I do want to point out the Pop Art Productions part of the corner box there. That was like a really short-lived thing, but Stanley, for a short bit, since guys like Lichtenstein were stealing panels and stuff from comics, especially like Jack Kirby's Magneto was one of them, and so like Marvel Comics was being seen as pop art, and Stan was trying to embrace that with the Pop Art Productions, and it is almost in the back column of some of those issues, he would say these are not comic books anymore, they're called Marvel Pop Art Productions. So you almost didn't want them to be called comics, which is kind of absurd in my opinion. But that really didn't last that long. I would actually, let's see how many covers it's on, because I wouldn't be shocked if it's only one or two of these Avengers covers. Okay, so it's on issue 21 and 22. And then there's 24 right there. I skipped one. Yeah, so issues 21 and 22 have Pop Art Productions, and by 23 they dropped it. So, interesting thing. But, so this is why these books are presented so well. They have a thick, high gloss cover, like the original comics would have. You get all of the ephemera, all of the advertisements and letters pages and columns and anything like that. So these are true facsimile editions. Nothing is left out. And then these are in a thick, but this is like the paper that I guess Taschen has had their own recipe and they've created themselves. But it's this thick matte paper and it emulates newsprint. So it's not that high stark, high gloss white paper that is kind of like garish and stands out. Even over the artwork sometimes having that very high stark white paper, it's a little bit of a gray and tone. That's something that Fantagraphics does a great job of too, with like their Carl Barks Duck comics, where they don't have it exactly high stark white. They tint it just a little bit because that's how the comics originally looked. But this won't age over time. This won't yellow like the original newsprint comics would. And that's the way that these comics should be presented, because these comics were originally printed on newsprint paper. So when you have a colorist back in the day, back in the mid-'60s when these comics were coming out, they were taking that into account when they were coloring them. So they knew that when they colored it a certain way, that the newsprint was going to soak up those colors a certain way. So then when you take those exact same files and you put them on high stark white gloss paper, that paper's not going to soak it up as well as the newsprint did, so it's going to look different. And then on top of that, Marvel traditionally with their Marvel Masterworks will recolor and touch up the colors, and they turn into like this garish looking, like oversaturated colors, and I hate it because, like, look at this, especially when you blow this up, because this is oversized. So this is like true facsimile edition copies of these comics, and then as if you put them in a transmogrifier and blew them up, like if you pulled them off the stands back in the mid-'60s and blew them up. And you can see all the textures and the dots from that newsprint in the artwork, which leaves a little bit of a texture to it and kind of like the nostalgic look of those comics. Like in the Marvel Masterworks, I can almost guarantee that this wall here that has all the texture on it is just one flat color. And it pulls so much from the artwork. And especially when you have this era artwork by Don Heck, which Don Heck's artwork, I should say, he pencils every single issue in this tome, this volume 2. And Don Heck's artwork is brilliant, especially and dating back to his horror comics back in the 50s, to his romance comics, to then his superhero comics, which were these Avengers issues, and he also did Iron Man. Sorry. But you just see like all of the texture in the dot gain from the newsprint and the coloring process from back then is all present in here. And here's the letter pages you get, which are fun to read because, one, that they provide context of what the fans were thinking about back then, but they also, you might find some famous people in here that would go on to become comic book writers themselves. And then you get all the Marvel bulletins in here and all the advertisements of these old advertisements they had. And these books do come with a ribbon, so I do want to show that off. It comes with a beautiful red ribbon to match the spine of the book. And then here's the famous issue with King, once an Avenger, this great, again, Jack Kirby cover on this. It's incredible stuff. So this was an era of Avengers too, I should say. Sorry, I always look at the letters page to see if there's anybody famous in them. Ray Russell. This is an era of the Avengers where they're kind of evolving. I do want to point out too that originally in the Silver Age, when the Marvels was first gearing up with these superheroes, they kind of had a mandate that all the superheroes' costumes were colored with primary colors. So you get blue, red, yellow, and now blue, red, yellow, primary colors. And then it was the villains that would have the secondary colors. So that's when you have like Green Goblin is purple and green. Trying to think of some other ones. Kang is purple and green in this. So it was interesting to me because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, when I was first reading these Avengers comics, a number of years ago, I guess is when I first read them. It's interesting to me that they start off as villains in X-Men, right? Well, then when they come over to the Avengers and become good guys, they're now maintaining their secondary colors. They don't change their costume colors. So now you have this kind of weird era of Marvel where they break that rule and have some of these heroes wearing secondary colors, and then later, throughout the years, that would just completely kind of go away. There's a Doctor Doom appearing in this issue. But this was a strange time for Avengers because in issue 15 or 16, I forget which one it is when Thor and Iron Man leave the Avengers, and then we get the Hawkeye, who also started off as a villain too, not with his secondary colors in his costume. He started off as a villain in Iron Man. So we get Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver joining the Avengers in that issue 15 or 16. And now that's when it becomes Captain America's kooky quartet, they called it. And Dr. Doom wearing a Hulk sweatshirt. What an amazing piece. I'm going to have to take a picture of that and put it on my Instagram. These I wish Marvel would bring these back as like a nostalgic piece, like these sweatshirts. This one said, "Here comes the Hulk," and on the back had like his backside and said, "There goes the Hulk." Anyways, so some fans weren't the most excited about this era of Avengers because they wanted the Avengers to be like the all-star team when you have like the heavy hitters like Cap and Thor and Iron Man, like it was in the beginning. Well, they ran into problems because around this era is when Stan Lee was really trying to bring a continuity to Marvel to where if one thing happened in one issue of this comic that affected things in a different comic in that issue. And also having continuity of, there's the sweatshirt front and back. And also having the continuity of from issue to issue, things happen. I think Christopher Priest in the intro even brings up like, if you're reading a DC comic, Superman could have turned into a gorilla one issue, and then that's never brought up ever again. Like Stan Lee didn't want that. And that was actually at the behest of Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. They were pretty adamant that they wanted each comic to live on its own and be separate. Like Jack Kirby wanted Thor to be its own thing, and Ditko wanted Spider-Man to be its own thing. It was Stan Lee's idea to merge the whole thing into a big universe and build it out that way. So when doing that, it created issues. So when you have Thor have his own comic book, and you have Iron Man have his own comic book, that's a great piece. I love any sort of underwater monsters and underwater scenes, and seeing it in this original art piece with the dots and everything looks great. But you'd have issues where Thor would be doing something in having some sort of cataclysmic event in his own comic, and then you read Avengers and it'd be like, wait a minute, like shouldn't he be affected by that in some way? And they would try to keep it, maintain that, but it became too much, and so Stan Lee's way of fixing that was to just separate them and have Thor stick with Thor and Iron Man stick with Iron Man. Now during this time, sorry, I'm a big sports fan. I was just reading who was on this ad. Now at this time, Captain America did have his own comic as well. However, his comic at the time was all about it was the continuity taking place of when he was in World War II with Bucky. So his adventures in his own comic were from back then, so that it didn't affect the continuity of the Avengers comics, is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of why they separated the team and had these other guys, which, in my opinion, over time probably helped them a lot because it helped elevate the characters of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and Hawkeye. And I kind of like the revolving door of the Avengers team too. Like if you read like this first 500 issues of Avengers, like Volume 1, it's considered, like you'll see like the team constantly is evolving and changing, and the lineup's constantly changing. And I think it creates kind of a fun atmosphere and comic to it. But these are really an underrated era of Avengers. And then one other thing I want to point out too is that around issue 35, I think, is when Roy Thomas takes over for Stan Lee. And that is a big deal because before that, Stan Lee was kind of the writer for every issue of Marvel Comics and continuity, at least on story, if not script as well. And Larry Lieber would pop in sometimes as well. And there was issues like Daredevil where Wally Wood wrote in a couple issues and things. But for the most part, it was Stan Lee doing everything. So by the time we get to issue 35, we get Roy Thomas taking over as writer. Let me see if I can find that. It's issue 37, 36. So make sure I have my... Okay, so this is scripted by Roy Thomas, drawn by Don Heck. I think... Yeah, 35, scripted surprisingly by Roy Thomas, is where Roy Thomas takes over and starts writing the Avengers, which was a... Oh, geez, I spent that page. Which is a nice transition because he was able to maintain that same voice that Stan Lee had for all the characters, and just like the gung-ho caption boxes that Stan Lee would have too, that just adds so much charm to these issues. So he was a nice transition for that, and it also freed up Stan to focus on other issues of things. But it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I can't recommend these enough. If you ever get a chance to flip through one and have one in your own hands, by all means, please do so, because they're a sight to behold. There's issue 39, which I think is the last issue. Collected in here? Oh, no, we get issue 40. Okay, issue 40, suddenly the Submariner is on the cover there. I thought it was the last issue because in the earlier editions, it was like the last issue of the book is on the back and the first issue of the book is on the front, but this one is not the case for either of that. So in the storyline credits back matter of the book, you'll see each issue, you get the cover and a thumbnail, and then they'll list all the credits, including the cover credits, which is great. That's where you see Jack Kirby drew the first two covers with Wally Wood doing inks, and then Jack Kirby, I think, does all the covers up to 25, and then does Don Heck take over at that point? Oh no, Jack Kirby's back on here. Then Don Heck again. So Jack Kirby does most of these covers, it looks like. But another cool part about this, with all the credits there, you get a story sample of what happens in those issues, which is kind of cool little reference to flip back and forth to, or read through if you're trying to find one particular issue quickly. You can skim through those real fast. Here's the original art piece of that issue 39 cover with, like, you see like paste ups on there. Here's another blown up panel. And here's the biography. So any creator that was involved at all in this book is going to get a little biographical piece here, including the inkers, the letters, and everything. Art Simek, who had the unenviable task of hand lettering all of the Stan Lee stories, which he was very wordy. So yeah, that's Avengers Volume 2 from Taschen. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 7th volume of the Marvel Comics Library by Taschen. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching this on the Organic Price Books YouTube channel, then please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and comment down below. If you're watching this on the Taylor Talks Comics YouTube channel, do all those things as well, and stay tuned because I'll have a horror comic video for you later today. Thank you guys so much, and keep talking comics.